Good morning.
Peut-être le point sur les évacuations. Présentement, est-ce que c'est terminé? Est-ce que c'est toujours en cours?
Bien, il y a quelques communautés qui sont toujours en train d'envoyer des patients pour des services dans le système de santé, mais la plupart les évacuations sont complètes.
Quel message pour les Manitobains après 10 jours d'état d'urgence?
Bien, pendant une semaine, nous avons déménagé 18 000 de nos voisins et voisines à une situation plus sécuritaire, avec des logements, avec de la nourriture, avec des services de santé. Alors, je te remercie en tant que le peuple du Manitoba.
Le Premier ministre Mark Carney va déposer son projet de loi pour les projets nationaux aujourd'hui. Vous vous attendez à quoi?
Nous avons jasé beaucoup lundi au sujet de ce projet de loi et comme le Manitoba, nous avons un projet pour vraiment bâtir ce pays dans le nord de notre province. Alors, j'espère que nous pourrons continuer de travailler ensemble avec le Premier ministre du Canada pour bâtir le Manitoba et bâtir le Canada.
Ça se passe comment avec les autres provinces?
Très bien, très bien. Yeah. L'Alberta et Saskatchewan étaient engagés avec ces conversations sur les méga-projets, mais en même temps, je pense que nous, comme le Manitoba, nous avons les embrassés et dit « Hey, travaillons ensemble pour avancer vos intérêts économiques et puis aussi pour nos opportunités ici dans le Manitoba. »
Mr. Premier, given that it's the feds that generally actually govern provincial trade, what does a MOU with BC do tangibly?
Doing an MOU with BC, the same thing that we did with Ontario, is about opening up big new markets for Manitoba businesses to sell into, whether it's a service for a consulting firm or whether it's a business who's going to send a physical good to another province. So the federal government has committed to remove every trade barrier that they had in place by July 1. So with the federal government stepping back, they got one exception around national security, but with them largely stepping back, it just allows us at the provincial level to open things up for business, to go out and create the jobs and create the economic opportunity.
The question is, what tangible, what is it, can you give an example of something tangible that an MOU does besides big picture, makes it look like you're doing stuff? Give me something concrete.
Well, the MOU with Ontario specifies having a direct-to-consumer alcohol deal in place. So there's specifics that we're working on there. I think, we haven't signed the deal with BC yet, but I know one of the things we're talking about with them has to do with lumber. And, you think about the Swan Valley operation that we have here and some of the people work in the bush to support that industry. It's about working together to make sure that we're protecting jobs and creating more opportunity in the future.
What about labor mobility? Is a plumber going to be able to work from BC in Manitoba?
That's some of those barriers are coming down as part of this process. So one specific example that Minister Freeland at the federal level has been talking about is land surveyors, who right now need both a provincial designation and a federal one. Federal one is going to be taken away, so it'll just be a provincial license. So yeah, we're going to see some steps moving forward for people to be able to work in different provinces, and that means, if we're going to build a big project here in northern Manitoba and we can get more tradespeople, more engineers, more consultants working, that'd be great for the economy.
How about nurses? Are you afraid of losing more nurses to other provinces that pay better?
We have a strong healthcare system that we're strengthening with work-life balance, with more opportunities to advance and to be part of something exciting here in Manitoba. So in addition to having good wages and those work-life considerations met, I think the environment that we're providing in Manitoba is something that's going to be attractive for nurses today and tomorrow.
Are you going to put in steps to prevent nurses from having the same mobility just to ensure that the healthcare system has enough nurses?
Yeah, we're always going to make sure that the healthcare system not only has enough nurses, but that we increase the number. As we've been doing for the time since we took government, we're going to continue growing.
Hey, sorry, I gave you a double-barrel question. You took me out there. So I want you to answer the question. Will you prevent nurse mobility? Period.
I guess I very gently, very calmly, very compassionately reject the framing of the question and just say that we're going to continue adding nurses. And so the thing that I think people need to look at is we've added, several hundred nurses to the bedside since we've taken office, and we'll continue to see those numbers go up.
So I'm going to very calmly, very gently reframe my question then. Will there be a measure to prevent nurses from going to other provinces as part of general labor mobility, Mr. Premier?
We're going to see the number of nurses working at the bedside continue to increase, and that's what Manitobans want to see.
So it would be accurate for me to say you did not answer that question, Mr. Premier.
I think the way that I've answered the question is to point out that nursing numbers have increased since we took office, and they will continue to do so.
I'm going to try to rephrase.
Okay.
Will nursing be part of labor mobility? It's a regulated profession. So will, as you move...
Well, it already is, right? Yeah. Okay, so then where does the question go from there?
We've seen examples of some barriers from nurses from other provinces. Because it's regulated.
Yeah, some of these decisions are with the college. So one example we have that's unique to Manitoba is with what we call an LPN in our province, having a higher level of training compared to a comparable category in another province like, say, Ontario. So those decisions that the college makes around self-regulated professions are the decisions that they do as an independent body. And we're here just to make sure that we get free trade in Canada by Canada Day.
You talked about about an energy corridor.
Yeah.
And I'm a little unclear. I've been away for a bit, but are you talking about expanding the port of Churchill, building a second port on Hudson's Bay, and or both?
I think we're like, just as like a foundational piece or table setting, I'd say we're going to continue investing in the port of Churchill. This is a crucial piece of infrastructure for that community and all the Bayline communities that rail line serves. Now that we're talking about a Western corridor and getting Western Canadian natural resources, ag goods, minerals, all these important economic opportunities to market, we want to take a look and say what's the best path to reaching the European Union. We know it's going to be on Hudson's Bay, so we're going to put that call out for proposals and make sure that we're shaking all the trees, covering all our bases as we move forward.
A proposal for what, though, Mr. Premier? Because what is the specific ask of the federal government here? What are we talking about? Like, there's a big difference between expanding the Port of Churchill so you can put more ships in, to putting more infrastructure there, to creating a new port near there, to creating a new port hundreds of kilometers down the coastline. Like, what's the actual ask here? Is it a port? Is it a pipeline? Like, can you please provide some more specificity?
Specificity? Yeah. It's early, right? We're all helping each other out. A corridor would bring a road, all-season road, a transmission line, probably a pipe, broadband together within a right-of-way to travel through northern Manitoba to get to Tidewater and to send our electricity to the west. So when we're talking about decarbonization, that's probably the big opportunity for Canada, is for us to send low carbon electricity to Saskatchewan and Alberta. And when we're talking about powering our Canadian economy, the opportunity is probably about sending resources from Alberta and Saskatchewan through Hudson Bay to the European Union and other international markets. The approach that we're going to take is to be agnostic and to turn to the private sector and say, okay, here's the broad strokes of a corridor, and now you, using the ingenuity and the innovation that the private sector brings, you help us sort through these different challenges and answer these questions. So if there's going to be a port on Hudson Bay, you tell us what is the best location that will allow for year-round service. Is it the Port of Churchill with an icebreaker? Is it the Port of Nelson? Is it some other solution there? If we're looking at the routes through northern Manitoba, we have a broad consensus, I'm sure, that it's going to be in the northern part of our province at a slight diagonal going towards the east. But what is the actual route? Let's have the private sector pitch their solutions. And then when we're talking about a pipe, what is the product that makes sense? Are we going to be looking at liquefaction, and then maybe it's an LNG thing? Are we looking at oil and gas projects? Are we looking at something novel like green hydrogen or maybe a potash slurry? These are the things that we can signal to the private sector we're open to having a discussion about, and then they build the business case, they build the business plan to say, here's what we think makes sense from the dollars and cents perspective.
So nothing's off the table in terms of LNG or oil. What will you do to mitigate the environmental concerns that come with shipping shipping petroleum products through an environmentally sensitive and meteorologically volatile area?
Yeah, I think those are some of the key questions that we want to take the time to get right. So there's an urgency right now with these nation-building projects and a national unity dynamic too when working with Alberta and Saskatchewan. But we also need to get the environmental piece right. And so I'd say there's probably two big picture principles that we want to keep in mind. One, engaging with Indigenous nations and northern communities, particularly around some of the wildlife and ecological considerations. So increasing tanker traffic in the Port of Churchill might make sense for the economy, but does that make sense for beluga and polar bear driven tourism? That's a question we need to sort out as a province together. And then the second major piece, the Prime Minister has been talking about decarbonized barrels. So how do we, if we're going to work with conventional energy, and like I said, maybe we'll do something novel like hydrogen other than that, but if we are going to work with conventional energy, what are we doing in terms of export contracts going west to make sure that we're offsetting any greenhouse gas emissions? Or are we doing carbon capture and utilization and storage? Or, is there a way that we can ensure that as we build, we're also moving forward on climate change?
So I look at that northern corridor and you say there's the right place for it. You've got Wapusk taking up a huge stretch of the coastline to the east and south of Churchill, all the way up to the Nelson River. To the northeast of there, you have a sensitive polar bear habitat all the way to the Ontario border. To the north of Churchill, it's sensitive. Where there's got to be, even at this point, somebody going, where is there a place that is fine to bury a pipeline, to do an offshore terminal like they do in Russia? Where do you think is even a feasible area for such a thing?
The map in northern Manitoba has these important conservation areas like the Seal River Indigenous Protected Area that we're going to want to work around. But it's important to know that a lot of the Indigenous nations in the north are at the table as part of this conversation, and they're the same people who are the proponents for some of these conservation areas. So I think there will be that, it's already been part of the discussions in terms of conservation areas and environmental protection, and as we move forward, that'll continue to be one of the really important dynamics that we get right along the way.
Does the Prime Minister promise something with respect to ice-hardened ships that could respond to storms?
We've made it clear that that is going to be part of our path forward here. We could use more icebreakers, polar-class icebreakers, and that's how you can make this a truly nation-building project. If we're having a natural resource play for Western Canada, including Manitoba, but we're also maybe putting people to work in eastern shipyards in Ontario, Quebec, or Nova Scotia, and we structure the procurement so the raw materials come from other parts of the country. That's a way we can make this a winner for all Canadians.
Do you see this as big as the LNG terminal at Kitimat, BC?
Potentially, but we need to, first of all, establish the process that's going to work for Manitoba with the concerns around the environment and the economic opportunities. And then we can go to the market and see, how big is this opportunity actually when we try to attach dollars to it.
Mr. Premier, I have a question on the wildfire front.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have an update on, hotel space? I know that obviously you mentioned Ontario stepped up.
Yeah.
What's the latest on what the province is doing to try to get as many people as possible out of emergency centers?
Yeah, basically where we're at now is just at a triage position when we're talking about evacuees from the wildfire. So as we speak here, there's more than 18,000 people who have registered. The vast majority of those folks are now in hotel rooms or private accommodations, meaning they're staying with friends and family, or organizations like the MMF or Norway House have stepped up with buildings. So for those folks who are still in shelters, it's just a matter of matching them with rooms as they come online. We're seeing about, over the past few days, maybe a couple hundred rooms come available per day. And we just have to do a balancing act as new medical patients come in from northern Manitoba, because some communities continue to evacuate due to smoke. We have to preserve some rooms for people who have accessibility issues or really intense medical needs, while continuing to move people out of the congregate shelters. So at this point, the big picture challenge around rooms has largely been addressed, and it's now just about the daily balancing act of triaging people coming in and people who are already in shelters and matching them up with rooms.
The Sheridan fire is over 300,000 hectares in size, I believe. Has there been any discussions about any kind of extra measures being taken? It's a pretty big fire.
Well, what actually happened is that the fire near Flin Flon and Sheridan combined, actually three of them effectively combined, and now we have this huge north of 300,000 hectare fires, which is just a massive area. So hats off, and our tremendous gratitude to the firefighters, the local firefighters, Office of the Fire Commissioner, Wildfire Service, who've been battling these blazes. Sheridan has been completely surrounded by fire for more than a week, and they've held it off. City of Flin Flon, within the city limits, they've held off the blaze there, even with some really challenging situations in the cottage areas around and in Creighton and Denair Beach on the Saskatchewan side. So just amazing work happening across the board, and it's happened because of people working together. Those different firefighting agencies with the OFC and the Manitoba Wildfire Service and Parks Canada and everybody. It's been really good to see people working together. The Canadian military was a huge help as well too with the evacuations, and that's how we're going to continue to manage, is just by having that cooperation.
And just one more question. There was a group of retired firefighters that say they went out to Flin Flon, tried to help and were turned away. I'm just curious as to why that is.
We got the best of the best working on the fires right now, and part of what we're working on is just making sure that we keep their focus on fighting the fires. So for instance, the people that you see in the media briefings, let's all remember that when they're out there talking to the cameras, we're pulling them away from managing the emergency response. And then the same thing happens on the local level. If we have a need, do we need a drink?
Oh no,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We'll get you some water. So if folks are there on the ground, I want them fighting the fires 24 hours a day. I don't want them to get pulled away to attend to other issues. And so we're doing our best to make sure that the people who are leading the response can focus on the really important task at hand, which, look at the results so far. They've protected the city of Flin Flon. They've protected Sheridan. They've protected Puckatawagan. And you go on down the list, Pimicikamak, Tataskriak, amazing coordination, amazing efforts, and I'm just so grateful that we have that kind of firefighting expertise.
When will the MOU with BC be signed?
Still looking at dates, yeah.
And why have that when there's Bill 47?
So Bill 47 establishes a legislative framework, and then under that we pass regulations at the cabinet table, basically knocking down the trade barriers on specific topics like, say, trucking or, other certain goods that might flow back and forth across provincial barriers. In order for us to devote the horsepower towards knocking down those barriers, it's helpful for us to have a signal from that province that we're serious about doing business together. So with Ontario and with BC, it'll be an MOU where we said, okay, let's get to work and let's knock down these barriers. With Nova Scotia, it was just as simple as a letter. They said, we saw Bill 47, works for us, we're going to take down our barriers, and now we expect you to reciprocate. So it's really just about sending a signal that we're going to devote the horsepower to opening free trade between these different provinces and ours.
I just want to go back to the question about the retired firefighters. Or is there a reason why the retired firefighters on the front lines are being turned away from helping?
We have the best of the best who are working on the front lines right now. And if you look at the results of what we've seen from that coordinated response, you got a 300,000 hectare wildfire that's been held at bay from Sheridan and Flin Flon. So I just cannot thank those folks enough for the good work that they do.
So you don't want the not next to the best of the best?
I'm not making any characterizations about anybody's ability. The only thing that I'm a little wary of is, well, we got the best of the best on the front lines. I don't want them pulled away to go manage other situations.
Just another fire question. We heard some,
For sure.
about tourism authorities here right now. Most jurisdictions in Canada, actually all jurisdictions in North America, when there's a fire threat, they don't do a blanket backcountry travel ban everywhere else, even where there is no immediate fire. They don't say, oh, there's a risk of fire here, so you can't go there. It's a long-standing practice in the Manitoba Wildfire Service to simply say you can't go anywhere when the fire threat is high. Meanwhile, Riding Mountain National Park, which has similar meteorological conditions right now, it's federal jurisdiction, you can go into their backcountry. What do you say to the idea of a more measured approach to allowing people in the backcountry away from the actual fire sites?
We've got the best of the best giving us guidance every day on the measures we're taking in terms of fire bans and backcountry travel, but also in terms of marshalling the response to the wildfire service. So we'll continue to listen to the advice that they have.
Do you think it makes sense to prevent somebody in southwestern Manitoba from walking in their immediate vicinity in a park or a wildlife management area when the nearest fire is 1,000 kilometers away?
Well, there hasn't been any lightning in Manitoba over the past few weeks, which means that the fires have been caused by humans. Whether that's carelessness or whether that's, some other cause, we're pretty confident in saying most of the fires we're seeing are caused by humans. It might be that the threat in southwestern Manitoba is different than in the north right now, but we have firefighters from Carberry in Puckatawagan, shoulder to shoulder. We have people from the Office of the Fire Commissioner out of, different parts of the province working in the north and so on and so forth. We cannot afford to pull resources into dealing with a local fire situation in different parts of the province, given the severity that we see in the north.
Sure, but it's Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Ontario, places that have fire seasons every year. They have a long-standing practice. They draw a big perimeter around the fire, say you can't go there, and they don't shut down other human activity. Their long complaint has been people on foot, people paddling don't create the same kind of fire risk as motor vehicles, logging companies, mining companies, yet they get exemptions to work in their areas in many places. Not entirely, but they often do. So it's just been a long-standing complaint in Manitoba that's far predated your government here. So I realize you aren't briefed on this. I'm encouraging you to think about it and maybe have an answer next time I ask you.
No, I've been briefed on it. I just am pointing out to you the actual reason that we do this. So if folks want us to review the policy, I'll always entertain that option. But for now, while the backcountry travel ban is in place, maybe this is the time for people to kick back and read one of those outdoor day trippers guides to canoe travel in Manitoba or northwestern Ontario.
No mention of D-Day today. I'm sure that's just an oversight. Did you have a few words?
Yeah, I think that visiting Normandy and Juno Beach last year is one of the most important experiences I've had in public life. And the fortuitous timing of being reminded by the veterans on the beaches of Juno about the sacrifice that they made for democracy and for freedom and for our way of life, I think really prepared us for the year that we've seen so far and the threats to Canadian sovereignty and the need to stand together as Team Canada.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Great.